Hello my lovely viewers and followers alike, it's me again, your man Daniel Aryee. Today, I am here to give you a quick update, thus the summary and full details of my banking transactions on 17th March 2025, as promised. Alright now, let's get in. Summary of update, 17th March 2025. First transaction, I received under $15 including accruals of interest instead of what I expected, thus expecting to get at least some 1,000s in terms of the local currency. Second transaction, bank checks on same salary account to find out if possibly at least portions or all of my frozen salaries have been released, revealed that still my confiscated salaries, which is over 10,000 Ghana cedis to 20,000 Ghana cedis, have still not been released. Final transaction, same bank. Here, the confirmed details on my savings account revealed that the monies in there, which I was counting on, are negative balances, thus my savings account have run into deficits, hence it was not possible for me to cash out any monies to at least augment the little cash I received as residuals from salary account during the first transaction, because the bank kept deducting service fees from my savings account since March 2024 last year without sufficient notification. Yes, thus 1 year now, which shouldn't be the case, especially when they realized the account balances was running low, yet they kept deducting for several months or years until the monies I have saved in the account have now become negative. Hence, when I discussed and confronted one of the managers, he acknowledged and took remediation steps to fix the SMS, or messaging notification system on the account. Good, so now we're done with the quick summaries, let's now get into the full details and proceedings from the transactions. Okay, right. So very early in the morning on the 17th of March, 2025, I set off, just as I hinted you online, yes, by walking for about 2 to 3 kilometers from my house to the bank, because I didn't have a penny on me. Good, I finally got to the bank, thus my branch, which also happens to be the parent bank, waited for a while before finally the bank opened for business. First point of interaction, I exchanged warm greetings with some front desk officers or officials, and I requested for the 3 sets of transaction above in the summaries, with the emphasis that I am more interested in withdrawing the residual balances in my salary account. In other words, that is my first priority. Alright, they agreed to assist me. Then a female official behind the desk called one gentleman and spoke to him concerning that. All this while, I was standing. Then later, the female worker had to get up from her desk as though she was walking past me into one of their offices. Then all of a sudden or spontaneously she stopped in the middle of the banking hall and called me from behind and again asked me about my purposes again, and I was like, what? In polite way, I said to her, why do you ask me to repeat myself in the middle of a banking hall, after I have petitioned you already or have presented the details of all my requests to you already, especially when you seem to be working towards it after you agreed to help me? Why do all of a sudden call from behind in the middle of a banking hall and ask me to repeat myself again? She agreed what she did was not the best. So viewers, possibly, here the drama may be intended to create an impression, as though she find it difficult understanding me or she could not make sense of what I am up to, and you know that could possibly make you look stupid in the middle of a banking hall. The drama was also possibly intended for me to fumble, thus probably mixed up the request, just to prove that I a confused person, feeding a false narrative, etc. Here, lovely followers, I just want you to wrap your minds about what the drama could possibly mean. Good, so let's get to business. So after politely rebuking her, I subsequently and politely repeated same request. Then all of a sudden he called the colleague male worker again and spoke to him, even after she had already spoken to same gentleman already concerning same issue. Alright, finally I have to be given a ticket, thus after I have entered my cell number into their electronic system, then afterwards, the lady walked me into one of the seats in the banking hall. Alright, after sitting for just about 2 minutes the official came again, and this time told me I can't make the withdrawal of the residual balances in my salary account because the network system to handle that is not working. And I was like, today too, after I told you how I have to walk about 3 kilometers from my house to this bank because I was not having anything on me, because almost consistently anytime I want to get access to my monies, they will put me through a hustle. So I insisted why this consistent network downtimes almost any time I want to have access to my monies. Besides, I pointed out to him that withdrawals should be their foremost priority amongst all their core businesses to serve the liquidity needs of their customers. Then he apologized and redirected me to one of their branches for that. Here I insisted and asked, whether he has done all the confirmations. He replied in the affirmative, yes. And have I left thus? I have to exit the main branch and walk again to another branch. I even knew what could be happening from past experiences. That is why alerted you, my online folks and loved ones, to be my witnesses. Then all of a sudden he called the colleague male worker again and spoke to him, even after she had already spoken to same gentleman already concerning same issue. Alright, finally I have to be given a ticket, thus after I have entered my cell number into their electronic system. Then afterwards, the lady walked me into one of the seats in the banking hall. Alright, after sitting for just about 2 minutes, the official came again, and this time told me I can't make the withdrawal of the residual balances in my salary account because the network system to handle that is not working. And I was like, today too, after I told you how I have to walk about 3 kilometers from my house to this bank because I was not having anything on me, because almost consistently anytime I want to get access to my monies, they will put me through a hustle. So I insisted why this consistent network downtimes almost any time I want to have access to my monies. Besides, I pointed out to him that withdrawals should be their foremost priority amongst all their core businesses to serve the liquidity needs of their customers. Then he apologized and redirected me to one of their branches for that. Here I insisted and asked whether he has done all the confirmations. He replied in the affirmative, yes. And off I left. Thus, I have to exit the main branch and walk again to another branch. I even knew what could be happening from past experiences. That is why alerted you, my online folks and loved ones, to be my witnesses. Now, do you see some drama here and subtle currents underlying the unfolding events? Because to start with, the banking officials should have known and informed me that their system responsible for withdrawals is not working from the onset, not after I have gone through the exchanges, picked a ticket and all the drama. Alright, so painstakingly I walked to the next branch, and immediately I entered the banking hall. I met one of the workers who was standing ready at the center of the banking hall, so she asked whether she could be of help, thus as part of her duties. Then I was like, good, I'm here to cash the residuals balances from my salary account and possibly get into other related transactions regarding my savings account as well, etc. At the center of the banking hall. Hence, after making my request, she wanted to follow suit in the negative, just as the previous branch, though in a polite way, by telling me that the system to allow the cash out is not working at their branch as well. But I refuted and insisted, please, my lovely online followers and well-meaning people, at this point I want you to notice, observe the trend. I mean subtle drama, scheming and hatching going on, sometimes against some targeted people. Sometimes they generally unleash it against so many other people. This is because, yes, if I had accepted the feedback she gave me, she would have turned me from that branch as well. Folks, your guess could have been good as mine in such a situation, since that may turn out to be a drama galore meant to feed a forced narrative, as though I am just walking aimlessly, playambulating with that purpose. Meanwhile, such dramatized action was also meant to deprive me of my own monies and to torture me, because I am a loner, so to speak. Okay, so let me brief you on the specifics of the exchanges between me and her. Thus, after she attempted to deny me that service, I immediately pointed out to her that her colleague from the other branch have confirmed with their branch and with authority, asked me to get to them because theirs is working. In fact, I told her, I insisted and asked that colleague of yours several times whether he has double-checked that and can confirm, especially when I have to walk about 2 to 3 kilometers to that main branch, only for them to turn me away to their branch. Besides, I made her aware getting to their branch clearly involves additional walking, since I didn't have even a penny on me, yes. Thus, indeed, even when already exhausted with the earlier walks. Okay, so after that exchanges at this second branch, thus after I insisted that it was confirmed by her earlier colleague from the previous branch, this banking assistant was like, okay, she will cross-check again and get back. Hence, a few minutes later, she returned and said to me she was sorry and that the system responsible for withdrawal from my salary account was working. Hence, she politely assured me they will serve me. At this point, she walked me to another colleague and narrated everything to the colleague, and that colleague noted in front of me. Then she kindly asked me to take a seat and wait a while, so I did just that. Hence, after another 2 minutes, this new colleague also called me and then asked me again how she could assist me, as though she knew nothing, wanting me to repeat myself even after such a thing had been just done barely 2 minutes ago with her other colleague. And I was like, oh, again. So the other colleague who was sitting adjacent to her alluded, but still, at least to be emphatic and to give her the benefit of the doubt, I repeated myself again, I told her I'm here to cash out my residual balances from my salary account and possibly carry out other related transactions. But please, sweet followers, do you again see a trend here? The events were unfolding and repeating themselves just like it happened at the first branch, because, to tell you the truth, even just the first colleague at this second branch could easily handle all my requests, at least up until a level, without needing to toss me here and there to another colleague who is performing exactly the same functions and objective just as her. Yes, the whole idea was again to create a false impression, to feed the false narratives of the organized schemes, whilst in actual fact they're really torturing and depriving me, etc. Okay, let's continue. So in fact I ended up repeating myself again, hence after making same request twice, just around the same counter, the attendant was like, okay, I should take a seat. So I did that, and subsequently 3 minutes later another female worker walked to me. In fact, by counting she happens to be the third person, interacted with me in just about some few minutes. Yes, so after a few exchanges, she gave me a ticket with a number indicating the exact teller designated to attend to me by assisting me to cash out my residual balances. Yes, she assured me and said the attendant assigned to the number on the ticket would cash out the money for me. So at this point, I was waiting, and lo and behold, my number got mentioned by the automated teller machine, besides the fact that it was also displayed on the number indicator teller device. So I confidently walked to that counter. This time he was a male worker. Even before we could get into any details, he asked me of my number, which I mentioned to him, and he was like that was wrong number and I was not supposed to be at that counter, and he started mentioning some numbers which does not conform or reconcile with what I had on my ticket, yet insisted on both the truth and my right, and said to him that the number on my ticket was correct, and that he could cross-check that from his system again as he reads my ticket number. At this point I just slided back off the counter a little bit and stared at the displayed number up on the teller device. Once again the feedback tallies and confirms exactly the number I have on my ticket. So after a minute the attendant was like, oh, he was sorry and that the number I gave him was correct. He then asked me to make my request, hence I told him I wanted to cash out residual balances from my salary account. Then he was like, oh, his system was not working and that I would have to do that with another colleague, so I should take a seat again and wait a while. Now after some 10 minutes he called me and directed me to another teller to the cash out for me. According to him, he has discussed and arranged everything with that teller already, so I finally walked to that teller. So here, I want you to pause briefly. Do you see the trend in drama to create a false narrative again unfolding? Yes, because, even to start with, how on earth should it happen that a ticket purposely assigned to that counter could be misinterpreted by the attendant? Besides, also a breach of trust also surfacing here, since the earlier or the preceding colleague who assigned me that ticket assured me he has talked to the attendant at that counter and confirmed to me that he would do the cash out for me. So do you clearly see how I'm being tossed here and there in just a simple attempt to cash out my own money? Yes, do you see the drama going on, even to the extent that I have to go through as much as 5 attendants for simple withdrawal before finally the 5th person served me by giving me access to cash out the residual balances from my salary account. Thus specifically, the residual balances together with the accruals have been lying in my salary account for several months and years. Hence I expected some few thousands of the local currency as the balance, but rather, the balances in the account was less than $15 instead of hundreds of dollars. Hence obviously, I questioned the attendant politely, yet the attendant was helpless on that because it was beyond her, so I did cash out disappointedly less than $15. Then I kindly asked her to get onto the next task by kindly checking if my frozen and confiscated salaries to the tune of $15,000 $20,000 may have been released. So she did that as well on the same salary account, and she said the salaries are still frozen and have not been released. At this point I simply said to her, I hope you testify to the disappointments and the unexpected turnouts. Alright, at this point, I shifted focus onto the last relevant issue on my to-do list, which was to query the balances in my savings account and possibly withdrawal, etc. So finally, I requested that, and I was arranged to meet and discuss the issues with one of the relationship managers at the banking hall. Thus I was in sort of a queue at this moment. Hence after a few minutes, it got to my turn and I walked to the desk of the assigned relationship manager at banking hall. Take note, even before I fully got to his desk, he also displayed a hand gesture of invitation. Hence after taking my seat and have exchanged some warm greetings with him, then he asked about my mission. So just when I was making statements to that effect, he quickly interjected and said I was not supposed to be at his desk. Then I was like, wait a minute, did you say that? Aren't you the same person whom your own colleague arranged before everyone in the queue for me to meet you? And besides, and even you personally extended and displayed an inviting hand gesture to confirm that, even before I started walking towards your desk. Truly, I do not really like this, because on purpose, I want our communication to be an intelligible one, because your feedback could be misconstrued to mean as though I arbitrarily and randomly walked to your desk, without a reason or a causal communication. So he then apologized, but quickly, yes, over to you my online loved ones. Again at this stage, I bet you could see a bit of drama that could make me look like a clown, stupid or unintelligible before others, if I had not quickly exposed the facts very intelligently. Your guess at this point also should still be as good as mine. Alright, so let's now get into the crux and details of this final transactions or business of that day. Yes, the details of why I was at his desk. Thus, first and foremost, I made the statement to the effect that I don't understand why my savings account have run into negative balances after a brief check through their ATM machine located right at their premises, through possibly illegitimate or unauthorized deductions from my perspective, because even if anything, because for any valid reasons at all, they should have sufficiently notified me about their administrative and service charges against my account on ongoing basis. So having made these statements, I subsequently asked the relationship manager politely to please confirm the implied and explicit queries and concerns in my statement by doing the analysis and reconciliations in his system. At this point, he then requested for my savings account number, so I started quoting, but the truth was that I had the number printed on a slip right in my hand, so for me it makes a lot of sense to hand it over, and other to avoid any oversight or misstatements. So I was like, please, here you are, I have the slip, so get it. Just by a brief glance, he said no, that is not the account number, so I should continue with the quoting myself. So, I quietly continued. Then afterwards he was able to log into my account. Then I asked, please do you now confirm that the printed number on the slip was my precise and accurate savings account number, which you rejected? And then he was like, sorry. Lovely folks, do you still see some traces of drama possibly meant to again feed a false narrative? Your guess is as good as mine. Right, let's get to business. So this banking official queried my savings account and then confirmed that my account is reflecting a deficit or negative balances. He also said the last transaction I had was exactly a year ago, thus March 2024, but ever since, they kept deducting administrative service fees. So I said, why do you still have to keep charging my account without sufficient notice? Especially when you realized my monies were getting low and almost entirely getting depleted. But you kept the deductions until now the account have dwindled into negative balances. Then he apologized once again and promised to quickly set and fix the notification system on my account. Right, so I waited for some 10 to 20 minutes for him to finish fixing and setting the notification system on my account. So he was done with it. I again insisted on my dislike regarding the persistent deductions against that account. Said yes, that truly, I told him I was not pleased with the outcome or findings regarding my savings account, because from my perspective I see the persistent deductions from my monies or account balances without sufficient notification as illegitimate and unauthorized in that context. Hence I want to be rest assured that going forward into the future, the bank would not repeat that and desist from such reckless or professional acts, because such actions clearly worsens or aggravate the financial plight of some customers, because for instance, it should not be difficult for him to empathize or identify with me given the fact that, out of all the 3 transactions I have undertaken with his bank, thus including the first 2 preceding transactions, none have been favorable. Specifically the cash out I just made in the previous transaction regarding residual balances in my salary account was disappointingly just less than $15, including all the accrued interest, which must be accruing for several months instead of expected few hundreds of dollars. Besides, my monies in the savings account that I could have cashed to increase my cash flow for the day have also been entirely depleted by the bank through persistent charges without sufficient notification for a year now. And finally, my salary to the tune of 15,000 to 20,000 Ghana cedis have still been blocked, because as a bank, they are there to soften the financial constraints of their customers, not to worsen it. He then conceded to that reality or predicament and promised once he has fixed the notification the incidents of persistence deductions without notifications shall not be repeated. At this point I rounded everything up by breaking the news to him that I will be traveling abroad in matter of few days, and hence I would want to know and be aware of their regulations and services for international banking or transactions, whilst I am aware, as in their rules and prerequisites to use the Visa card etc., because it is the most readily active account I have. So he gave me some directives regarding what to do when I travel outside the country for such seamless transaction. I also added if there was something I may be physically required to do, so we can quickly solve that, whilst I was still present with him, because there is no much time anymore up until I finally travel. Then quickly, he realized there was one more thing to do, thus he needed to confirm my email to facilitate certain kinds of electronic transactions, whilst outside the country, because to him without that confirmations, I would have to physically sign some documents before leaving the bank. In this light, he requested my email. Yes, I have to write down and submit my email to him for that reconciliation and confirmation in his system. Thus after about 5 to 10 minutes he confirmed the written email address was perfectly in alignment with the email address he has related to my account. So he then said to me that everything now is set and provisioned in the account appropriately and there is nothing any more to required of me. So given the fact that we have done sufficiently enough, and truly, since there is also nothing any more to do from my point of view as well, Lee think I may want to leave now? He said yes. We shook hands and that was the last exchange and final transaction at the bank. So folks, besides everything, I want you to wrap your minds on the happenings concerning the subtle drama and how on almost each event and every single transaction I have to stand and insist on my right and also prove my intelligence, because without that I would have gone through successfully with any of the 3 transactions, because truly for each of the transactions there was some kind of initial denial. Finally do observe that a simple transactions that could have taken only 2 banking officials to handle right at my main branch, it's ended up with 2 bank branches handling it, and I had to go through the hands of as many as 8 banking officials, 2 from the first parent branch and the other 6 from the second branch of the same bank. Besides, the outcomes compared to the expected cash flows were not in alignment and hence unfavorable. Yes, specifically on that fateful 17th March 2025, I was only able to cash out the available balance of less than $15 instead of possibly getting home with a few hundreds of dollars to even $1,000 or more dollars if my salaries happened to be unfrozen on that day amidst all the drama struggles, especially after walking for 2 to 3 kilometers from my house to the bank. Once again, thanks for watching and standing with me. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel at DTechnology4. As stay positive and do not look on, support a good course if you can, as the relocation is surely coming on by the grace of God, with or without money. In that respect, I will keep updating you on measures, decisions, and happenings in these brief period, until I have finally relocated. Yes, I cannot continue to stay in these kinds of oppressions and tribulations. For over 20 years, these inhuman ordeals where my basic necessities like water, food is heavily contaminated with sewages or garbages, mortuary water, deadly chemicals, abrasive, detergents, sedative substances, human fluids and deadly carcasses, etc. Yes, it can continue and I am leaving the country. Yes, will not stay for anything even $1 quadrillion. I have better opportunities out there, saith my God, the Lord of hosts, and I shall grab each of them by the grace of God, or Inshallah. Amen or Ameen. Please take and see you in the next video. Bye.